Open your Bibles and let's share together Matthew chapter 22, starting with verse 15. I'm sure you've heard this read many times around the 4th of July holidays. Then the publicans went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. Teacher, they said, we know that you're a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by men because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax." They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, "Whose portrait is this? And whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then he said to them, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." When they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went away. Well, it was a trick question. It always was when asked by the enemies of Jesus. The Pharisees and Herodians hated each other, but they were willing this time to pool their resources in order that they might kill Jesus. So they got together, as they almost never did. And they planned this out ahead of time. And they asked this simple question: is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Okay, Jesus, yes or no? Which is it? Now remember that this took place a day or two after the triumphal entry. Christ only had about maybe 3 days left at the most before his crucifixion. The air was almost electric. Everyone was expecting something to happen. Christ had acclaimed himself as king. But what did that mean to the Jews or to the Romans? Suddenly the noise of the crowd died down and they listened for Jesus to give an answer. Mark says that Jesus replied by saying, "Bring me the coin." I think it's Luke who tells us at the feeding of the 5,000. Somebody said to Jesus, "There's a little boy here and he's just got a handful of food," and Jesus said, "Bring that to me." So I guess that's the title of the message this morning. From Christ bring me the coin. When we do that, everything comes into perspective a little more. When we think about bringing him the coin, or the little bit of food that we have, or the troubles that overwhelm us, we're able to cope with it. The coin. Whose is this portrait and whose is this inscription on the coin? He asked. Now, it wasn't the Jews' idea to worship another god. As a matter of fact, the second commandment legislated against it. They were very stern about this. They believed in one God. They were monotheist to the core. But yet on this coin that they constantly carried around on their person, and many of them had saved up perhaps dozens of them at their home, was the engraving of Tiberius Caesar. With this inscription under the picture of Caesar. Tiberius, son of deified Augustus. So if Augustus was a god, that's why they called him Augustus. And they said he was a god and he accepted it. Then his son was also a god, and Tiberius willingly accepted that title. So here are the Jews with their inconsistency. No image of any god. Yet they had on their person the images, many of them, and the coins that they carried. The image of the emperor cult. Deified Tiberius. And the Romans loved every minute of that. But Christ wasn't through just looking at the coin. As he looked at it, he said, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's." When Paul wrote the 13th chapter of Romans, about 30 years later, Nero was emperor. And yet he said this, "Everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established." God has established the authority. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. We might not agree with Caesar, but we are to honor our government and our rulers and submit to them. Anarchy will tear a country up in a hurry. And that's what a lot of people today want. This country, we sang about it this morning. Every time we give the pledge to the flag, one nation under God. And because it's under God, it is indivisible. And there is liberty and justice for all, but only under God. Go to Honolulu and out in the bay and look at the ruins of the sunken Arizona. We survived that because we are one nation under God. Go to Arlington and walk through the maze of cemetery, of tombstones that are there at the cemetery, and see the thousands who died to make sure that this is one nation under God. Pull a coin from your pocket or a bill from your purse. What does it say? Every one of them. I tried to find one the other day that didn't say it. I couldn't. In God we trust. Visit every department head in Washington, D.C. And somewhere in that building, probably the entrance, in God we trust. Look at the Supreme Court building on the outside and in the chambers inside. In God we trust. The Supreme Court. It's because in God we trust that we are what we are. And the nation that we are. Our forefathers knew that. They placed it in the documents that this country was built upon, from the first states in New England right on through the Declaration of Independence and even a few words in the Constitution itself. And the very first amendment to the Constitution was that Congress shall have no respect for any religion, and that we are free to worship as we think we should worship. In God, we as a nation trust. We have done that. And He has made us what we are. When we cease to do that, either by taking the words off the coins or letting Christ slip out of our lives, we will join mighty Babylon and Rome and Egypt, whose great nations went down to oblivion. Render to God what is God's. About 8 or 10 years ago, I was driving through the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. And there was a great big, long, stretched out hill, beautiful hill. It was covered with cattle. There must have been 400 or 500 cows on that hill. I've never seen so many cows in one spot. And I thought to myself, That's just one hill. God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. But he owns the hills. All of them. Listen to a few verses in Psalm 50. I have no need of a bull from your stall or of goats from your pens, for every animal of the forest is mine and the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird in the mountains and the creatures of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine and all that is in it. So, rendering to Caesar is necessary and vital. But it pales in comparison to rendering to God what is God's. And that's what Jesus said. Now, there was one other question they were going to ask Jesus. And that came the next day. And a man came to him. He was honest. He said, Lord, of all the commandments of the law, and the Pharisees said there was 613 of them. I don't know how they counted that many, but that's what they said. Of all the commandments of the law, this man said, which one is the most important? That's the way Mark puts it. Which one is the most important? Catch this. Jesus said, the most important of all is you shall worship and honor the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength and mind. I know there was another one that he quoted, but we're looking at this one right now. Now you'll find that in Deuteronomy 6. But no, you won't find all of it in Deuteronomy 6. The great Shema, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, was given to Moses by God. But it said nothing about the mind. Jesus added the mind to it. Why? Because as a person thinks in his heart, so is he. Question is, not so much are we rendering to Caesar what we're supposed to render to Caesar. That, yes. But the real question, are we rendering to God what is God's? So that's the answer that Jesus gave. Pretty good answer. And a good answer to the man who came the next day and said, which is the greatest commandment? When the man agreed with Jesus, Jesus said, well, you're not far from the kingdom of God. But to be near is not to be close enough. Maybe you're like that this morning. Who's going to take care of the invitation? Somebody supposed to do that? See, it's been a long time since I've been here, and I don't know how you do things. Do we have an invitation hymn? Listen to this. Listen to the message. Let it sink into your heart. And ask yourself the question, am I rendering to God? Oh, that word render, by the way, means to pay back. He loved us enough to give his son to die for us. And he raised him from the dead. Are you rendering to God the things that are God? Will you come to him and accept him as your Lord, your personal Lord, as we stand and sing?